Hello there, one and all, and thank you very much for tuning in to episode 555 of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, live on YouTube. Whether you're watching the live or you're watching the recording, you are very, very welcome. Feel free to leave a comment, ask a question anytime, and also if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do consider doing so. First comment goes to Alex, who says, hello again, I've heard so much about this. Yes, and a lot of people have been getting in touch with me saying, when am I going to review it? Well, the answer is right now. This is the latest release from the brand Marc-Antoine Barrois, founded by a person who just happens to be called Marc-Antoine Barrois. And this is their latest star. It's called Aldebaran. We may get ourselves in a twist about how we meant to pronounce this particular star's name. Dushan says, "Oh, I really don't like Aldebaran. Please tell me why." Sounds like a planet from Star Wars, says Carrot. No, it is legitimately a star. There is a star called Aldebaran. Rachel says, oh yes, very interested in your opinion of this, and I am interested in yours. Composed by Quentin Bisch. Not very impressed, says Oriana. First smell was like a less impressive Nuit de Bakelite. Ah, interesting. Didn't the Empire blow this up? Okay, you're forcing the geek in me to come out, but wasn't that Alderan as opposed to Aldebaran? Not that I've seen the original Star Wars films more than once. Modern Ops says, hello from Sweden. You're very, very welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, tiny little bit of context. Marc-Antoine Barrois was a couture brand that was founded some time ago, but a few years ago they released their first perfume, B683, but I think I'm never really sure whether I get the numbers the right way around, because it could be 638. I think it's 683. And then they released Ganymede, and that really, really took off and has become a huge, huge, huge cult classic. Many, many people, many perfumers, many people in the industry thinking that it's going to end up being one of those, greatest scents of all time type compositions. One of the best things that Quentin Bisch has ever created. And then they released Encelade, which was equally big, equally strange, because Ganymede is a very, very, very strange perfume. And they've done sort of variations on them, so we have extrays of them. But then last year they decided to start what they're calling a kind of star range. So all of the others have been named after planets, some of them fictional planets. And last year's Tilia was the first of their stars. And I think it's fair to say that Tilia, which is essentially a kind of linden blossom scent, Tilia was trying to be more accessible, a little bit less weird, a little bit less out there, but still with that quite strong, striking Marc-Antoine Barrois / Quentin Bisch signature. Aldebaran is a star as well, and I think that kind of trend towards making things a bit less weird, a bit more accessible continues. Now, I'm seeing a fair amount of negativity towards it. Rachel says it's quite postmodern, right? You need to tell me why you're saying this, because I have to say I'm quite taken with it. I haven't spent a huge amount of time with it. This is a sample that I managed to get just the other day. But let us spray and talk about it together. Let's spray over here. Now, the word tuberose has already come up in the chat a few times, and yes, this is, if Tilia was essentially a linden blossom scent, this is even more essentially a tuberose. I think the trouble with a note like tuberose is if you're going to do tuberose, you kind of can't do it by half measures. I suppose it's a bit like vetiver, where if you go over a certain percentage of vetiver in the formula, then the vetiver seems to dominate, and this is a tuberose heavy composition. Let's smell. See, to me it opens quite kind of medicinal camphoraceous, not a million miles away from Tuberose Criminelle from Serge Lutens, which I adore. I think is a beautiful, beautiful tuberose composition. Rachel says, I think it's postmodern, and I like it, actually. But tell me why you say that you think it's postmodern, please, actually. I heard it smells like paprika. Is that right, says Alex. Right, it does have a kind of paprika accord. Now, I don't know about... Depends what we mean, right? So do we mean paprika as in the spice that is very heavily used in Hungary, or do we mean something else? I get a peppery feel. I get a very, very, very strong pepperiness that comes out even more on skin, and I find that really quite intriguing. I'm not sure I've seen a pepper combined with tuberose in quite that way before. I mean, people have already mentioned Nuit de Bakelite from Naomi Goodser. I've mentioned tuberose criminelle. I see somebody's mentioned poison, although poison isn't a kind of thing of its own, because poison isn't just tuberose, right? Poison is as much about the kind of candied, honeyed fruit. It's just a great big abstract diva, poison. Carnal flower has been mentioned. That, I think, carnal flower is more dewy, fresher. Nila Vermeer's new composition is a tuberose, but it's a lot greener. This to me, and what I'm about to say is a little bit ironic given the press blurb, this to me feels like a kind of feisty tuberose. I think the pepperiness almost creates this feel of like tuberose punctuation. It's like tuberose full stops all over the place, or tuberose apostrophes flying at you. It's kind of going like ping, 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 with tiny little bits of tuberose coming towards you. And that gives it a kind of... It's not aggressive, but it is assertive, and it's kind of quite bolshy. The word feisty keeps coming to mind for me. Alex says the fresh, sweet red paprikas have a very fruity and spicy smell. But you see, that's a tricky word, because sometimes when people say paprika, they mean what in some countries are called bell peppers, and so it gets a bit confusing. Rachel, postmodern as it is using previous well-known themes in a bit of a pastiche to create something new and a bit uncanny, but in an interesting and thoughtful way. Okay, yeah, I would go along with that, because I do think there is a certain amount of deconstruction going on. But not entirely, and I think this is the least weird, the least out there of the Marc-Antoine Barrois. Madame Persolaise immediately started swooning over it when I sprayed some on the back of my hand, and I think it has like all of the other MABs, it has a tremendous sillage, lots and lots of projection, and she was really, really, really finding it quite delicious, which is interesting because she doesn't normally find herself gravitating towards tuberose perfumes. But I think it's one from the ones we've had from the brand so far. It's the one that I guess is the easiest to kind of get, the easiest to figure out in a way, the easiest to kind of put in a category and label. And that's fine, you know, if the brand has decided that that's what they need to do, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you can imagine fans of Ganymede and fans of Encelade thinking, okay, when are we going to get the next planet? Because it's the planets that are the ones that are really, really out there. Now, I'd like to read a little bit about it because it's interesting how they're selling it and how they're presenting it. So they say, it's a white light in the dark, a mysterious clarity radiating a nocturnal clearing, the caress of the moon on a field of tuberose immaculate petals reflecting the glow of the star like a mirror. It is a star, Aldebaran, one of the brightest in the sky, the second star of the floral constellation imagined by the designer Marc-Antoine Barrois and his accomplice, the perfumer Quentin Bisch, the first one being Tilia, right? The notes that they quote are tuberose, paprika, mate and tonka bean. And there isn't a huge amount more there, really. It says, like a luminous star in the night, this new fragrance is a soliflor of tuberose with milky facets and fresh petals, lightly enhanced with paprika and tonka beans. Aldebaran embodies hope and optimism. We'll come back to that. Aldebaran takes its name from the brightest star discovered and observed by an 18th century Arab astronomer. Its name from the Arabic Aldebaran evokes the outstretched hand of one who helps and shows the way. This olfactory experience is a quest for optimism, like a journey through the looking glass from darkness to light. A luminous fragrance, Quentin Bisch reinterprets the diva of white flowers to restore her freshness and almost absolute purity. The perfumer, still alongside Marc-Antoine Barrois, has pushed the boundaries of this iconic flower, creating an olfactory composition of rare elegance that is both delicate and addictive. And then we get a quote from Monsieur Bisch himself. Born from a bouquet of tuberose, the most fatal of flowers, work the milky facets and fresh petal notes, sprinkle with a pinch of paprika to redden everything, tonka bean for addiction. And I want to go back to this hope and optimism thing, because Tilia was also supposed to be this sort of perfume of hope. And I thought, gosh, tuberose as kind of like, smell speak, olfactory vocabulary for optimism and for hope is quite unusual. And I thought, okay, so maybe I could take this as optimism as a very kind of active, assertive force, because I suppose things like optimism and hope are quite often seen as being quite passive, in the same way that maybe pacifism is perhaps unfairly seen as being passive. But I thought to myself, this is kind of like a dagger of optimism, or a sword of optimism. Or to go back to what we were talking about before, this is a lightsaber of optimism. It does have this kind of cutting through the darkness feel. Now, I should get the pre-sprayed. So this was sprayed about 3 hours ago, I suppose. JJ says optimism and hope have a sort of tender connotation. Yes, absolutely. And tuberose doesn't, right? Which is why it's interesting that they've gone for that particular marketing line. I think it kind of works, but it's unexpected. RN says Ganymede is like a turpentine field of grass exploded in your nostrils and it stays after a shower. It does. Oriana, it seems to me that Quentin wants to do tuberose as a creator that does not like tuberose. Tuberose Astral also felt like that to me. Interesting. I mean, Astral was, I think, less interesting than this. But pre-sprayed Aldebaran, it's very nice. It's very, very, very attractive. And it does have this kind of, well, sorry, I'm kind of going to mix my messages because I talked about lightsabers, but maybe if you can imagine sparks of light coming from this light, like I was talking about these apostrophes or full stops flying at you. It does still have that feel. It stays quite green. It's not overly musky. There is no hint. I'm sure there must be some Akigala wood in there, but it doesn't kind of bludgeon you over the head at all. So thank you, MAB and QB. And it's more attractive than Astral, says Angela. I think so. But maybe because it's just a bit less demanding. And it's interesting they've used the word soliflor because it is a tuberose. It's not. I don't think it's trying to be strange or out there or reinventing the wheel at all. I think Tilia comes across as more hopeful and optimistic, but I think this is an interesting statement on a kind of jaw-clenched optimism, like a kind of optimism where you kind of go, okay, things are really, really rubbish, but we need to get the job done and we need to go and we can't give up hope. So a sort of fighting fit optimism, if that makes sense. I would imagine this is one that it sounds like a strip club for the nostrils, says RN. I don't know why you think that, but it doesn't sound like a strip club for the nostrils for me, or doesn't come across like that for me. I would imagine it's going to be one that a lot of you are going to be trying in the days and weeks and months to come. So regardless of when you've tried it, if you are watching this video and you tried it, please let me know what you think of it. I shall be very, very, very interested to see how it fares and how it performs as part of the Marc-Antoine Barrois universe. Okay. Thank you very much for watching. If you stuck around for all 3 videos, thank you very much indeed. As always, please stay tuned to social media for information about new videos coming your way. But until the next time we see each other, thanks again, be good, and be even better. Yeah, bye now.